When left to our own devices, we like to make art.
A few friends and I created this different sort of product, and we got here in a different sort of way. This is the video all about the design process that we fully documented for your viewing pleasure. Today we go from first sketch to this final product. Throughout 2020, I had a real desire to be outdoors. That's where I took these pictures. Mushrooms are incredibly unique structures that are unlike anything else. A few friends and I thought that it might be really interesting to create an artistic tribute to the mushroom. The first sketches aim to look something like a biological specimen scooped right out of the earth. In the end, some of the photos look a bit more like renders than reality, and for a time, they were just digital. Highly organic objects can be immensely challenging to produce in 3D. We needed CAD models that were highly adjustable so we could match the upper limits of our new 3D printer. We wanted every detail that we could possibly afford in these structures. This was not going to be an easy task. For this, we would need ADD. I mean AAD. By using algorithm-aided design, we developed a never-before-seen dynamic and adjustable parametric approach to creating these incredible organic structures. Every aspect of the mushroom anatomy was recreated in faithful detail. Inside of the program editor, we can drag sliders left or right and see the mushroom update in near real time. We decided to go with a cluster of 3 mushrooms that show the stages of its life cycle. The smallest is only just emerging from the soil, the cap only starting to open. The second shows the cap beginning to flatten as it grows in size. The third stage is the climax in this mushroom's life cycle. The cap begins to curl upwards along the outer rim. This action exposes the gill structure. While the algorithm was in the works, I sat down one day with the first models and I started doing some renders. Mushrooms often seem to sprout up between clumps of moss. There's something very whimsical about this. So I roughed out a pot and threw some moss in it. The lights in it seemed like they might have some potential too. What had first popped into my mind during the initial discussions of this idea was a piece of digital art from 20 plus years ago. For nostalgia, we wanted to bring it back. We figured that the clear mushroom might transmit light well enough to create an interesting effect. It was also clear that the mushroom took on a whole new feel when you could see through the top side. The gill structure is beautifully detailed, and it felt wrong to only be able to see it from below. Rendering is the way to go for look development, but it will only get us so far. To see what it's really going to look like, we have to make one. Printing went well, but not that well. The shapes were fantastic, but the prints were not without their failures and imperfections. After spending a huge amount of time cleaning the resin off of the print, sanding it, and buffing it, I knew that this was not the way to produce these in any significant quantity with good quality. The printing resin is also cured by UV light. This is a real issue when it comes to a product that might be sitting in the sunlight for many, many years. I needed a material with the longevity that is required for a production part. We explored injection molding for these, but the shape and incredible complexity makes the process virtually impossible, and, if possible, incredibly expensive. Another potential approach was resin casting. Resin is resilient and UV resistant, so it won't yellow with time. I had a very specific idea about how to demold one of these in a way where there was no visible split lines on the parts. Split lines are the spaces where multi-part molds come together and form a noticeable impression on the final product. These parts are essentially magnifying glasses for imperfections, and any blemish will look enormous through the other side. The mushrooms would have to be nearly flawless to be worthy of some close-ups, so I started a deep dive into resin casting. I couldn't find many videos on YouTube that dealt with this kind of complexity. If we wanted to truly do the mushroom justice, we were going to need to invent a process. The opportunity for these parts to be riddled with bubbles was very real. There are loads of tiny cavities for bubbles to become entrapped. The way around this is a process called vacuum casting. It's essentially the same as a typical resin pour, only you do it in the absence of air. Though an industrial machine typically does this type of casting, I borrowed some of the fundamental concepts of the process and designed a 3D printed fixture that could achieve similar results in a budget setting. Here is the result of this process. It might just be the most intricate cast mushroom ever produced. What we needed now was a foundation for the mushrooms. So while those were in development, these pots were in production. They have a heavy, premium feel. The color is also reminiscent of soil and rock. This plays on the slice of nature theme we have going on. To make the pot feel a bit like it's floating, the final design has a steeply curved bottom side. This shape did create some challenges. These needed to be thin but strong and have a great surface finish with high accuracy. They also need to interface with other manufactured components. Everything turned out really well, but it took about 50 tries to get the process and mix down to a science. Once everything started to come together, we could see the potential for a variety of distinctive styles. The moss felt very natural, but it blocked too much of the light and the mushrooms just didn't glow like they needed to. So we tested a wide array of fill material until we found the two we liked the most. We were not about to give up on moss though. Months earlier I started propagating for prototypes. The trouble with moss is that it doesn't like to grow in environments that humans enjoy. Think of it like moss likes to be outside in the rain, and you don't. For that reason, we preserve the moss so that no maintenance or light is required. Lastly, we gave some thought to raw materials. We wanted to create a composition that felt like it was from some exotic world. Stainless steel sand took it in a whole different direction. Another favorite was this collection of rocks. It reminds us that even in the most inhospitable of places, life finds a way. These options together make up the MycoSERIES: the Myco Glow, Myco Matte, and Myco Moss. If you like this chill desktop item only quarantine could have produced, support our Kickstarter today.
Any support you can offer will help to ensure that we can make more unique products for you to enjoy. After all, that's exactly what we want to do at Crucible Company.